happy to be here, right, and talking about something which is very close to our hearts as a company and me personally. And I think the topic is actually capital efficiency over valuation. And why it is close to me personally is because, personally, I come from a middle-class family, and I have heard, titles like Punjabi Baniya and Chindi, and over the time I was growing, right, around, मुझे याद है Europe में we were on a backpacking trip, 4 of us guys after we passed out of MBA, and मैं मतलब एक रोड पे जो है 10 बार्स चला के ले गया लोगों को कि नहीं आधा यूरो सस्ती मिलता है कि बियर तीसरी जगह पे. So I mean that was just to sort of set example of what how I've been as a person and how that sort of shows up when you're building a company as well. And that's it. When we were building the company, we didn't call our value as being cheap, right? It was, the value was also always being frugal, and which when I had to explain to my team, and it's actually drafted as one of the examples as well, right? I explain it as frugality is how Indian households buy grocery. Right? हम जैसे सब्जी खरीदते हैं ना, and that is frugality. You might be upper class, upper middle class, whatever you are, and you will always negotiate, and then you will try to add dhania mirchi as well. That is frugality. And so as a company, it is not about not buying vegetables, and it is not about not spending money, but it is about creating a culture where everyone realizes and believes that there is always scope for negotiation. And someone is coming to you with the rock bottom prices, and there is still scope for negotiation. And then after you have negotiated fully, there is still scope for adding and asking for value adds. And that's the sorry, Mowing Age BD team, if making it difficult for you guys, but that's the kind of DNA that we at least built the company with. And I think I will talk about 4 or 5 key areas which I believe are important when we discuss this topic when you're building your company. And one, it's very important to know your destination. Right? All of us operate in different industries, right? Some operate in SaaS, some operate in consumer. And today we might be in a startup zone where we are a high growth, building the company kind of a zone. Right? But 10 years down the line, we won't be. We will be a mature organization. And hence, it's important to see that today, the mature organizations in that sector or segment, and how are they stacked up? And when you look at their P&Ls, kaisa dikhta hai? And what percentage is OPEX? What percentage is marketing cost? And what kind of margins do they make? And when you look at some of that, and it's important to then compare yourself and say, okay, where am I? And where is this gap? And where is the gap like crazy high? And if the gap is high, and you need to question why it is high. And there are 2 kind of ratios that you will, or costs that you will usually come across. And so for example, in our case, in FMCG, the mature companies are almost 18 to 20% EBITDA levels. And there are certain ratios which we know exist for them, which include a 60% gross margin, and about a 25% TTS and reinvestment, a 10% OPEX. Those are the key sort of ratios which exist for them. And so now knowing those ratios, and you try and arrive at, okay, boss, which is the ratio which is controllable ratio, and what ratio is not controllable, right? So for example, gross margins are not very controllable in nature. And there is some bit of skew which can come because of scale, but beyond that, there'll not be much that will happen there. On the other hand, marketing reinvestment is a controllable ratio. It's a tap that you can turn on, off, and you can sort of move it as much as possible, right? So, agar to jo variances hai are there in a controllable ratio, like marketing, that is fine. That's a choice that you're making because you want to grow faster. But if the variance is on a non-controllable ratio like gross profit, and then there is a problem, right? Which is where we have ensured that, anytime we were innovating, anytime we were launching a product or deciding which categories to get into, and our first barrier was, is it going to be a 60% plus GP business or not? And if it's a non 60% GP business, I'm not doing it, and period. And so that's one of the core principles that we applied while thinking about how to build a capital efficient ratio. And the second thing I think, what I'd say is, around you, and there'll be a lot of people doing a lot of crazy stuff. And just don't get enamored by that, right? There are people who have very different situations compared to your business. And there might be some other business which is saying, hey, I'm going to put the house on, this whole bet. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, I'm going to shut it down. And there might be businesses which are in such hyper growth mode that they have absolutely figured out what is working for them, and they're putting 10x the money there, and sort of, because of that, there is growth that is coming in. And then there would be businesses which might be doing things which are much earlier than when they should be done. And I remember in our journey in 2018, we raised a round, and we had a board meeting just after raising that round. And the new investor came in and said, hey, now we got money, and let's just spend it, right? Let's go on TV, do ads, and build sort of the business through that. And I had to give a clear pushback saying, no, I'm sorry, we're not ready for it. And if you want the money to be burned, then we are not the company who's willing to do that. And we will only do it once our distribution is ready to absorb such a marketing effort, and as well as once our supply chain capability is in line to capture that growth. And aap growth to generate kar loge, but if you don't have teams who will convert that lead, and if you don't have distribution which is where it will sell, and if you don't have customer support, and which will manage the queries that get generated out of that, and it's just going to be a poor experience. And hence, not doing crazy, especially before time, and is actually a great strategy. And so that's the second thing that we've been doing. And the third thing that we found very early on was that people a lot of times equate their burn to capital utilization. Saying कि boss मेरा 50 लाख का burn है, and इसका मतलब मैं 50 लाख की capital utilize कर रहा हूँ. Not really. And P&L burn is not the number that you need to look at. And it's the cash burn that you need to look at, because apart from P&L, you're also investing a lot of money in your working capital agendas. And how that is getting utilized, and you might be in a business where there is 6 months of collection cycle, and if you are in that business, then your monthly burn might be lesser, but every time you are growing, and that growth, you are actually creating a 6-month capital requirement, because that's your working capital requirement. And so when you are tracking capital needs for your company, and just P&L burn is not enough, and actually cash burn is the more important factor to use, and which is where we did a lot on the working capital management side. In fact, we're a negative working capital company, and finally we collect early and pay later, including to our partners sitting here and to everyone, right? We are very clear that we need to ensure that the capital that we operate on comes from the ecosystem of partners, and we need to ensure that we are collecting as early as possible, and that's become a kind of a DNA, and then that just helps, right? Actually, the more we grow, the more capital we generate, and so sometimes there are quarters where the cash generation from the business is far higher than the profit that business generates, and that's a good state to be in. But even early on, we did a lot of small things which helped us get there, right? I mean, large partners early on like Facebook, Google, would not give us that much leeway. And we started using corporate cards. And इनकी 30 दिन का free credit boss और कौन देता है, and इसको use करो to do as many expensive as possible, and that will give you certain capital unlocking which happens on some of these places, and similarly figured out other ways through which we could generate that capital. And so not just burn, but working capital management is an equal part of how you can be capital efficient, and a lot of us not end up looking at that. And fourth, I think I mentioned it very early on, and the culture of capital efficiency has to be a part of your DNA. And frugality, or whatever you call it, right, has to be, right there in all the actions that you're taking inside your organization. And I remember very early on when I was starting up, and I was reading Amazon's example, and that they to get the culture of frugality right, and they got all their tables and as doors from IKEA, right? And the symbol was, and कि वो door में वो घूमने वाला एक वो था ना, there is this with which you unlock the door, and that hole was always there in tables, right? So you could see it's actually a door, right, which has been converted into a table, and that's the message, right, that the organization is sending. क्योंकि table जो है वो used to be 5 times more expensive than this factory-made door, and they do the same thing. It's a flat surface for working, right? And but they just sort of send that message to the team that this is the kind of organization we are. You see that hole, and you wake up to the reality that we are in the business of retail, we have low margins, and hence we need to be frugal. And similarly, if you ever go to Southwest Airlines office, and you're a guest there, and you ask for coffee, and you will get a coffee, but you will also get a $1 bill saying, hey, this is for the coffee. And they're like, what? They say, we all pay it. And it's how the organization operates. And we have cut down everything to the bare bones and passed it to the consumers, and everything else then needs to be charged. Right? So these are cultural messages which help build the right DNA in an organization. And you can't be, as a founder and as a leader, saying something else and doing something else. You've got to walk the talk also. वो खुद भी demonstrate करना पड़ता है behavior, rather than just talking and saying, hey, we should do this, and then saying, oh, this is my friend, can you send X products to him, or can we give X discount to them? And I'm sorry. And I mean, for the longest time, and even today, we never gave a single product free to our relatives. And they used to crib, right? We are in the business where everyone wants your cream, shampoo, and they say, can't you sort of, give us something? And we would give a coupon code of the website, right? Saying, hey, this is a discount code, you can use it, right? To get, a discount on the website. Or this is the next big sale coming in, why don't you buy from there? Because ghoda ghas se dosti karega, khayega kya? And this is my business, and I can't be giving stuff for free. And when people around me in our teams, when they saw us sort of doing that, it was just a very clear message, that if it is not for, and by the way, whenever we take products, then we get it sort of, deducted from our salaries, at the same employee policy that is there for the team, right? So if we do all of those things, and you're sending a clear message to everyone, that, hey, this is the kind of organization we are, and we want to become. And all of that put together makes you capital efficient. And the last thing that I'll talk about and leave with you is something that I've also learned over the last 5 years. And you might have done whatever in the past. You might have operated the organization in whatever manner is the past. And it is absolutely okay to change your mind. You might have told your team 1 year back ki aise hoga, but today you realize that was wrong. Please change your mind. It's absolutely okay. And we shouldn't be married to the decisions or the thoughts that we had taken in the past. We should be married to generating value in future. And just because you're wiser, don't carry the burden of being true to the same things that you said in the past. And be okay, change your mind. Say, hey, I was wrong. now I have changed my mind and this is what we will do. And with that, probably in future, you'll generate far more value. And thank you so much for listening to me, and hope it was useful.
To participate with us. I know it has been a long day, but this is the last event for the day, and this is something that we all at Mamaearth take pride in. We believe in being customer-centric, and I'm sure some of you know, or most of you know, Mamaearth is a very customer-centric, customer-first platform. We do cater to more than 1,000 customers globally. And what we have observed is that our customers are doing a lot of innovative stuff on the platform. They're engaging with their customers in new way, delivering a lot of results. If you can go to the next slide, just a few of highlights. So we did call for awards, people to nominate, requested customers to nominate their use cases. And we are very proud that customers have realized a lot of value from Mamaearth as a platform, right? Close to 400% increase in engagement, 230% increase in booking, 225% increase in conversion, and 100% increase in revenue. I mean, I'll just repeat it, 100% increase in revenue, right? And when we were seeing this, we realized it's our opportunity to thank our customers to have innovated. We even had our co-founders and product leaders inspired by the way the customers are innovating on the platform, which makes us happy and encourages us to do a lot more. So without further ado, I'll get started. So this is the first award. This is given for customer engagement and retention strategy in financial services and industry. This award is given for excellence in driving customer engagement and retention strategy in financial services industry, and in alignment with what Varun said, this company believes in delivering services which are affordable, and it is the fastest growing financial institution